From the EPAWA headquarters in South Allentown, Pennsylvania, it's time for Weather Weeklies, an informative video of the ins and outs of weather that affect you most in the EPAWA coverage area. The following segment is a weekly video blog, and the opinions of the forecaster do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the staff of Eastern PA Weather Authority LLC as a whole, nor its constituents. Without further ado, here is meteorologist Bobby Martrich with Weather Weeklies.
Hey, good Sunday morning to you. Another edition of Weather Weeklies for Sunday, July 26th, and I had a choice of either being outside or inside this morning. Inside, of course, we probably hear the baby in the background. Outside, it's like an Alfred Hitchcock film, but we're not filming. This is just an outdoor shoot on the laptop this morning, going over a few things in the long range. So please excuse some of the background noise you might hear through the course of the video. I'm going to go to long range projection here. This has not changed, and there's been no reason to change it. We were still looking at an above average, slightly above average late July here. We're going to be in the above average time frame. This is going to we're going to have another heat wave that's going to hit this upcoming week, which we'll get into in a little bit. And that should last for a few days. A real oppressive heat should last for a few days. And I think a cold front comes through Thursday, but it's another weak front, so behind it, it doesn't really look like it cools down too much. So we're still going to stay above average right into August, at least the first week of August. After that, things kind of get a little tricky. Okay, as we'll look at some ensemble guidance that goes out to about 15 days or so from now, it suggests that they're going to be a little bit more of the way of troughiness in the northeastern United States. It might be entrenched for a little while, and that ridge, the subtropical ridge that was entrenched over the center of the country, will now be retrograding to the west. I'll show you that as well. And then we kept the second half of August near to slightly above average for now. That might be changing depending on what that does. We're keeping August precipitation near average for the month here. We'll update this week if we see the need to. Here is the subtropical ridge we were talking about, sitting right over the center of the country. This is what gave us our heat wave last week, and the same thing is going to give us our heat wave this week. Another trough in the Pacific Northwest. Jet stream is forced up and over the top here, and that means we are stuck underneath the ridge here. The influence of the ridge, and that is hazy, hot, and humid conditions expected Tuesday through Thursday. And then we're going to have a slight dip here. It's going to allow for a very weak front, but every time you have one of these any systems that we have are going to have to come up and over the top here. So you have a low pressure system that'll have to come up over the top like this. So when you have when you have a low pressure system moving over here into southeastern Canada, you do have cold fronts that are extended down from that, but the further away from this low pressure system, it becomes very, very weak, just because of the hot ridge will actually win out and start to dry out this front as it moves toward us. So I'm not really expecting a lot in the way of thunderstorms on Thursday, except maybe some isolated stuff. Same thing with any cold front that we're getting in the next over the next week or so. Most of it looks very weak just because of this ridge in place, and it's really helping to dry things out. So behind that front Thursday, it's still going to remain hot, and you're still going to have the effects of this ridge here. I think it's after that point, once we get past the middle of next week, we start getting, or maybe the following weekend, we start going back down again. Here are our temperature anomalies. Here is a look at departures from normal. This is expected temperatures above or below normal for what is expected for this time of year for that date. And this is for this Wednesday. You can see these reds here, and these reds would indicate some very, very warm temperatures. Now you got to keep in mind that averages here for this time of year, if you're looking at average high temperatures, you're everywhere across our coverage areas in the generally the mid to upper 80s. So if you're talking about temperatures that are 8, 10 or so degrees above normal, that's putting your temperatures in the mid 90s here. Conversely, if you have these blues over here, this would be a below normal temperature regime out here, but much of the entire northeast here is going to be above normal. And we go a little bit forward from that to a week from now, a week beyond that, and really hasn't changed much at all. Same thing. We still have this same idea here. A little cooler up here, very, very warm up in this area across our coverage area. So we will have a cold front come through Thursday. Not expecting much of a cool down. Might get back into the upper 80s for a day or two, but you're hovering right around 90 degrees straight through the following weekend. It looks like way into the following week again. We're going to have some Temperatures hovering around the 90-degree mark for quite some time. Here is this week with a hazy, hot, and humid here, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. This is a look at Wednesday. These are mid-90s. These are air temperatures. This is not including heat index, so undoubtedly the heat index will be approaching, if not exceeding 100 degrees in many locations. Probably some heat advisories going up again from the National Weather Service, especially down towards the Philadelphia metropolitan area, but it'll probably be extended in very similar areas that it like it was we had the last one, which is just a few days removed from that one last week, of course. And then once we get to Thursday, it's hot again, and then we might have that cold front come through. It might cold off maybe 2, 3, 4 degrees. That's about it. So it's not a big cold blast coming in behind. It's not a true cold front by definition. When we go out a little bit, though, remember, we're going to go back to this here. I want to show you this again because I just don't want you to lose focus of what I'm trying to explain here. This is your your ridge here that we're talking about. Okay, subtropical ridge, and this is what is right now giving us all the heat and humidity, pumping all the heat and humidity in the United States. What we're expecting this to do once we get into August, probably the second week of August or thereabout, this high pressure is going to retrograde westward. And it's going to set up shop right about here in the desert southwest. Well, that's going to change everything. By this ridge being here, you're not going to have the ridge forced over, the jet stream forced over the top like this, and that's going to give us a trough in the east, which is cooler weather. All right, so we're waiting on that. Here is a look at the European Ensemble, and this was tweeted out by Dr. Mike Ventris of WSI Energy. And this is a spaghetti plot. Looks like a bunch of squiggly lines here, but this is an ensemble. This is if you took all 51 members of the European model ensemble. The majority are showing that upper air vorticity. Anyway, we're looking at that high now sitting out here as opposed to being out here in the middle of the country. So that's going to be retrograding west, and as a result, you get a ridge up here like this, and then your trough is sitting down here like this. Okay, because the ridge, the jet stream is going to be buckled over that ridge here. And so it'll be very warm out west. Well, we're going to get these cooler shots, and this is going out pretty far. This is out the second week of August now. So I think the second week of August we're going to have to watch as this high retrogrades to the west. And it's going to allow for some cooler air to get into our region. So we will be looking for that. But until then, we're going to bake, it looks like. As far as precipitation is concerned, not much to speak of. This is a 10-day total here. This is if you took all 10 days and all the precipitation expected for each day and totaled it for the entire period, we're not breaking an inch pretty much just almost anywhere in our coverage area. Some areas just bone dry right across south central PA into east central PA, and then you get into northern New Jersey. This is a result of a few thunderstorms, and this is mainly just really Monday and Thursday. It's the only days you have any precipitation coming in here. There was talk earlier in the week about maybe the European model was onto something with a tropical system coming up the coast. Didn't really have a lot of support, so we really didn't give it much attention. And now it has backed off that idea. So this is some very bone dry conditions, except for right in here. But even this is over a 10-day period. So if you're talking about an inch of rain, that's total over 10 days. It's like, you know, that's not every day. It's maybe twice you might have a thunderstorm roll through, a couple of thunderstorms, and you can get that just from one thunderstorm easily. So not looking at a lot of precipitation in general across our coverage area for the next 10 days. Do want you to invite you to look at the effects of the upcoming El Nino and the winter of 2015-2016. If you go on our homepage, at the bottom left is our latest feature blog. Every time we have a feature blog, it updates on that page on the homepage. And this is, if you haven't seen this, take a look at it, because this is a lot of people have been asking us about, you know, what's going to happen for the upcoming winter, or what our thoughts are on that. Everybody's hearing things about the super El Nino out here in the Eastern Pacific, and while that could happen, you know, I really don't think it has the effects of in our area of a super Nino until we get, you know, that would probably be more like in the early to mid fall. It probably peaks and then starts to decline after that point. But we still have a very warm phase PDO sitting here, so it's very warm here. Obviously, very warm up in the Gulf of Alaska. So there's some things that are happening this year. Everybody wants to write off winter and say, oh, it's going to be so mild and so, you know, snowless, basically, for the upcoming winter. There's some things we're going to look at that are definitely, when we look at past anomalies, there's some things that are different this year, even though you have a strong El Nino here. or at least heading that way. And you got a warm PDO sitting out here. You have potential for a negative EPO. So there's some things that are going to drive the pattern, that have driven the pattern for the last 2 years. It'll be interesting to see what happens when it combines with this El Nino, because we really haven't had a lot of analogs to compare this to where we have this setup. So we have a few. And it looks like those few that are closest do want to keep it warm to start the winter, but then in the second half it kind of turns on a dime. We get some blocking up here in Greenland, and then we start getting these cold shots into the northeast with the Arctic Oscillation going negative. So we'll see what happens. I mean, it's a long way away, but if you want to look at our preliminary thoughts on winter, of course this is not a projection. We don't do that until November. But it's our initial thoughts based on climate and what we have available to us right now. Take a look at that blog on the homepage. Again, it's the bottom left, and it's going to say El Nino and the relationship to winter 2015-2016. I am Eastern PA Weather Authority meteorologist Bobby Martrich, and that is this week's edition of Weather Weeklies for Sunday, July 26, 2015. Have a great one.